Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that his presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. We continue on, 1 Peter chapter 4. Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God. For the time that is past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatry. With respect to this, they are surprised when you do not join them in the same flood of debauchery, and they malign you. But they will give account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. For this is why the gospel was preached even to those who are dead, that though judged in the flesh the way people are, they might live in the spirit the way God does. Now, there's a few things in here that I want to direct attention to. In fact, Preston called this past weekend and we ended up talking about this passage. And Preston pointed out the flood language, this flood of debauchery, this flood of kind of wild, reckless living, and the flood language going back to Noah, and which was up in the passage before. And yeah, we can kind of picture this, that in Noah's generation, the people thought it was rather strange of him not to participate in all the partying that they were doing, in just pursuing their passions. And here's Noah working on the ark and living a righteous life, and they think that Noah is kind of crazy. And yet, they're going to give an account of themselves. They're going to be judged, and Noah's going to be saved. And Peter is saying kind of the same thing with us, same thing with all those that he's writing to, that they spent enough time in the past living that kind of lifestyle of just trying to satisfy their desires, chasing after their passions, whatever they might be. And that now is the time to live unto God. And even though everyone thinks you're pretty crazy because you're not pursuing the same kind of pleasures that they are, yet they're going to give an account to God who judges the living and the dead, just as those in Noah's generation did. And so Peter's kind of saying, don't join with them, in their flood of debauchery, their wild living, because that's going to come back on them, even though they think it's strange that you don't join them. His closing sentence for this section, for this is why the gospel is preached even to those who are dead, that though judged in the flesh the way people are, they might live in the spirit the way God does. He's not talking about preaching to people who have already died and then you go preach to them. Rather, he's talking about this is why it was preached to people who died before Christ's return, that they face death sentence just like everyone else does, but in their spirit, they're alive to God and they are with God. And so death does not have that last word, that they've been saved. And so kind of calling attention that, we're all under a death sentence, that we're all going to die no matter how we live, whether we kind of waste our lives away in debauchery, wild living, just pursuing pleasures and power, or whether we live righteous lives and our intent is set on following Christ no matter the cost. We're all going to die, unless Christ returns before that. But while we may experience that judgment in the flesh, that death sentence, yet in our spirit, we will be alive to God and that we will be with Christ and we have the hope of resurrection. And so we're not simply under a death sentence like the rest of the world. We are actually under a life sentence, life in heaven, and ultimately resurrection life. Well, don't know where you're scattered today. I don't know what people might be saying about you because you are intent on following Christ, but keep on following and just realize that your witness shines bright and that you're living under a life sentence. So God bless. Have a great day.